This is going to be my last video on Linux. I only had one that I uploaded, but gosh darn it, I tried to make it ultimately work with what was the best distro that could have worked for daily driving something like this on this PC. As you see in front of you, I am running Arch Linux at the time of this recording. This was the best option for this machine I have, which is quite good. It makes you wonder why I would even consider running Linux on it if if any version of Windows works just as well. Should you ever ask, I couldn't answer that question. The best answer I could possibly pull out of my ass is this: it was all part of the nearly year-long experiment that succeeded with resurrecting my older hardware to peak usability, but ultimately failed to replace my old work environment despite providing excellent alternatives, and in some grace of God, getting League of Legends to function near natively on a system that wasn't designed with Linux in mind. I did all I could, but I realized something after setting up my mother's new workstation for her business. Why am I using Linux on a machine like this? As much as I love Linux and don't mind it on my older machines, there's a reason why I installed it on those machines. Their life cycles within the Windows ecosystem was on borrowed time thanks to Microsoft essentially soft forcing us to get with it or perish in obsolescence. It's a move I still to this day can't get down with, but that's just how Microsoft works. I like my old machines, and in my own fuck you to Microsoft, I installed Linux Mint on my 8-year-old Lenovo Z7080 IdeaPad, kicking off this very interesting and fulfilling journey. It made me fall in love with technology again, as if I wasn't already still interested. I went from fascination of the hardware aspect to the more complex software aspect. Let's say the command prompt in Windows no longer scares the living shit out of me. Working with the terminal in Linux gave me a power that I didn't think I'd ever have. A new form of control over the machine that most in the Linux community would say controls me. Enough of my rambling, though. We'd be here all day if I fully explained my journey down the GNU/Linux rabbit hole and community itself. Here's a TLDR. Shit's cool. The community is enjoyable despite the vocal elitist minority. To be honest, that exists everywhere, and being a role player and writer, I'm used to shit like that. I feel like I've learned a lot about my machine and how systems function outside of something like Windows, where the normal consumer isn't meant to think outside of the pretty graphical interface and into how things actually work. With that said, this PC is too powerful for Linux. It's great to see my PC operating something like KDE with 16 gigabytes of RAM and almost never tapping into the additional 16 gigabyte swap partition I made in case I run out of memory somehow. But it all feels pointless. Not to sound like a skeptic or a fucking downer, running something like this on a PC meant to be a production machine kind of makes no sense given the resources are more than enough to take on whatever bloaty bullshit Windows 10 or God forbid 11 wants to throw at me. As long as I'm not a complete idiot installing random sus crap, my PC should be able to survive with the bare minimum of protection. What I do on my channel is make videos. Sometimes. I like to edit things, and my choice of doing such things is in the form of Sony Vegas. And for Linux, it has to be Kdenlive because I can't get Vegas to work on this shit. As much as I like the alternative, it feels limited. Those limits are small, but it's usually the small shit that ends up mattering in the end. Not to mention having to rip my testicle hair out getting League and OBS to cooperate the way I fucking want them to on something like Arch Linux, or any Linux for that matter, when it was so piss easy to do it on bloated ass Windows. For crying out loud, I run Endeavor OS on my former production machine, which is my Acer Nitro 5. I feel right at home because it's essentially Arch Linux with a dope ass theme, an extra repo, and an AUR helper out of the box. It's the closest feeling to Arch Linux without the pretentiousness of installing it manually and sniffing your own farts while having a come from self-inflation. My Lenovo runs Manjaro, which is just Arch Linux but stable in massive air quotes. I'm not going to go any further. Manjaro is a bit of a smelly presence in the community. I could have just used Debian with KDE Plasma or Kubuntu if I wanted to be on the up-to-date shit. I like Arch. Sue me, fuckers. There's also the issue of maintaining the NVIDIA driver on Linux. I don't have to remind anyone that NVIDIA and Linux mix together like ketchup and chocolate syrup inside of a glass of water. A bit of an exaggeration, but drivers for NVIDIA on Linux are a massive flake in the nuts to deal with, whereas AMD hardware is supported out of the box, therefore making the task of daily driving Linux on a yearly basis easy to achieve. I'm not about to spend hundreds of fucking dollars for a Radeon card and then have to hope that the damn thing fits and functions with my motherboard while having to manually uninstall the old NVIDIA drivers and reinstall the AMD shit if it hasn't already been recognized. I have a perfectly fine NVIDIA card that does what I want it to do. And it does that thing on Windows because everything works on Windows. It's much easier to deal with. Plus, my Lenovo also has an NVIDIA card that I can test with Linux compatibility should I distro hop again. It seems like my Acer Nitro was made to run on Linux after passing its Windows shelf life due to the entire thing being built from Team Red. I could run all kinds of shit on that bastard, and it would run League or anything just fine without the hassle of installing this driver and that dependency, or making sure I'm using the right display server so OBS capture isn't a needlessly frustrating experience. And in the case of something like Fedora, the actual game working as intended on both display servers, Xorg and Wayland respectively. With Windows, I don't have to think about this shit. Sometimes I'll think about whether or not my antivirus should be upgraded to something actually good like Kaspersky, or why my fans randomly spin when I'm doing usual things when my machine is quieter than a fucking church mouse using Linux with the same shit open. The bloat doesn't matter to me because all I care about is getting the shit I want to get done easy without compatibility concerns. Like, Linux can feel like a wild card, especially if you're running some bleeding edge shit like I am with Arch, or other mad lats with Gentoo and Void. At some point, my ass is fixing something. That isn't much of a problem because I like doing that. It's a learning experience. But I would rather do that on my machines that aren't intended for actual work. Stuff like my Lenovo, where if I break it, I can just install another system without having to worry about a thing, or chroot into the broken system from an ISO of another system and attempt to fix it. I was never productive on this channel in the first place, but this Linux shit has really cut into it. Not to mention my job is a stressful fuck pit, but I'll save that rant for another day when the time is right. So, to summarize this whole scripted video, I feel like it's better to use the operating system that was shipped with this PC. Yes, I can daily drive Linux just fine, enjoy it, and dab on the haters. Yes, I can play League of Legends without issue despite the client being a jank city. Yes, I can record shit with OBS fine enough. But if my PC can do all of this shit on Windows, which has way more usability and practicality than something that exists to be a free alternative, while not missing a beat performance-wise, using Linux on a performance or on a powerhouse like this is completely missing the point of having a production PC in the first place. I mean, think about it. I'm sacrificing ease of use for an idealistic stance on freedom, and that's silly. I just want to use my fucking computer that I spent $1,700 dues on. I don't need that elitist fart-sniffing bullshit in my face. Thank you. This is a gaming PC even, and despite the strides Linux has made in gaming, increasing its compatibility 20-fold from where it was before the Steam Deck happened, I'm still severely limiting myself from what I could do just to prove what? that I can do those things on a much harder operating system. If I wanted my dick sucked, I'd hop my ass on Grindr and get my dick sucked. Now, do not misquote me in this entire video. I love Linux. I'll keep using it on the machines that need it. But I don't need it here. Not on this PC. There's no reason for me to use Arch Linux when Windows 11, for as bloated as it is and bullshit as a platform, works exactly the same performance-wise. I've switched back to Windows more than once, but I feel like for this PC, I'm going to stick with it until it starts breaking down years later and I have to use something like Arch Linux. Thank you for watching this video and listening to me ramble about shit. I promise to get some videos out, but don't take that really, like, just take it as a grain of salt, I guess, because I'm really busy. Anyway, peace out.